Is your writing stylish? Well, actually, before you answer, what does that even mean? Hey, it's great to see you again. Now, in one of those paradoxical instances of cosmic strangeness, writing style is one of the things that I've probably spent the most time thinking about, and also one of the things that we've spent the least time talking about on the show. Actually, when I was first planning it, the word style was almost part of the channel's name, which honestly would have been a little awkward since I've spent the last 5 years more or less avoiding the subject. And I really only bring it up because I think there's a larger point to be made about writing. Now, I often find that I procrastinate the most when it comes to writing something that I care a lot about. And maybe you experience something similar. When it's important, when it feels like it really matters, I worry that I won't be able to do the subject justice, so I do everything I can to avoid getting started. But they tell me that perfect is the enemy of good, so it's important to remember that yielding to that inhibiting pressure to do it justice can often just end up with not doing it at all. And sure, we've talked about stylistic ideas here and there, and even a few of my favorite books on the subject, but we've mostly outsourced any kind of style talk to our partners at the Quintillion Institute. Today, though, we're going to dip our toes resolutely into a head-on discussion of style, mixed metaphors and all. So if you get nothing else out of today's show, at least take it as a nudge to get started on whatever you've been putting off. If I can do the thing, so can you. Well, anyway, let's talk about style. Now, I love posing the question, when someone has style, what is it that they have? Usually, people respond with a person's distinctive or unique way of doing something, like writing or dressing. And responses usually include demonstrations of good taste or some kind of skill in combining elements in pleasing ways. And naturally, these discussions of style usually dwell on aesthetics. Something stylish innovates on norms or expectations to good aesthetic effect. And these responses get at a long historical debate about style that, frankly, I think is pretty silly. In one corner, we have people who view style more as an attribute, marching under the banner, "Style is the man." They argue that one's style is an immutable product of that person's identity. Your style is a reflection of who you are. And in the other corner, we have the ones who argue that style is more of a skill, a controllable, flexible thing that you can change however you want, whenever you want. And of course, it's a silly debate because both are obviously and observably true. There are aspects of your style that are unavoidable functions of your inherent way of being in the world, natural products of your unique and idiosyncratic ways of expressing yourself and working with language. And this is why we can recognize an Emily Dickinson poem as an Emily Dickinson poem, or a Monet painting as a Monet, or a Brahms symphony as a Brahms. They're all art produced by different artists who produce art in their own different ways, resulting in distinctive styles. But this kind of style isn't that exciting to talk about because it's not exactly in your control. You are who you are, and it might be interesting to study Brahms' musical style, and it would even be reasonable to try to emulate it, but that road will eventually end with the fact that you are not Brahms. Not that you're better or worse, just that you're a different person. You won't write a symphony in exactly the same way because you're not exactly the same person. And honestly, why would you even want to? Even if you admire his work, why dissolve your own unique and valuable artistic identity into some other artist's? So yeah, there are aspects of your style that are just a part of who you are, but it should also be obvious to anyone who has ever complained about a coworker to their friends in one way and to HR in a different way, that aspects of your style are also fully flexible and controllable. Brahms' First Symphony is different from his third, and on a much humbler scale, my poems, academic papers, emails to students, and videos all sound like me, but also all sound different from each other, because of course style is flexible and controllable. And I'm certainly not the first to point out that style can be both an attribute and a skill, and not just one or the other. As Andrew Inkpin points out, the French philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty makes an unspoken distinction between personal style, which characterizes someone's way of being, and artistic style, which characterizes a given work. So your personal style, sure, is largely a product of who you are, but you have a lot of say in how you express artistic style in any given project. And that may just seem obvious to you, but you know how academics are. But at its most basic, I find myself falling back on Merleau-Ponty's statement that a style is a certain way of handling situations, which also resonates with the linguist Deborah Tannen's definition of style, which refers in her words to no more nor less than a way of doing something. Of course, that's awfully broad, so I like to take it a bit further. When we're talking style in the arts, we're talking about how the artist handles their medium, whether it's oil paint and A minor scale or the English language. We're much less interested in what the art is about, and much more interested in how it goes about conveying its subject. So what does it mean to have style? Well, fundamentally, it means having a way of doing something. It means paying attention to how you work your medium. However you do that, you can safely say that you have a style. But of course, that's not really what we mean when we say we want style. A boring, unclear, or frustrating style is a style, but it's probably not what you aspire to. So yes, everyone and everything has a style, but we wouldn't call every style stylish. When people say they want to develop their style, they probably don't mean they want to develop it into something that puts their audience off. So let's look a little more carefully at what developing your writing style might involve. If we agree that our style is the product of how we handle the medium that we're working in, then our writing style is a product of how skillfully we handle the English language. Improving or developing your style then means improving your skillfulness with the language, which of course is easier said than done, but still wholly doable. Now, learning to use the language more skillfully requires knowing more about the language and how to use it. There are ways to improve your style without doing a deep dive into the language, but I really think you'll only get so far without a good foundation of linguistic knowledge. And that's not to discourage anyone, actually to the contrary. Any time you invest in learning how language works is time that can pay off in the quality of your writing later. And if we had to break that knowledge into a few major categories, well, then I'd probably break them into the major branches of linguistics. There's morphology, which focuses on the structure of words, semantics, which focuses on meaning, phonetics, which focuses on sound, syntax, which focuses on the structures of sentences, and then pragmatics, which focuses on how language works in context. But really, as a place to start, I think you'd see the most benefit from focusing on choosing the right words and building good sentences with an awareness of your rhetorical context. And that third part is crucial. Our goal shouldn't just be to create the most elaborate sentences packed with the fanciest, most impressive words. Instead, we should be focused on using language in a way that will fit our purpose in any situation. Since the earliest days, rhetoricians have argued that a good style is a style that matches its purpose. For example, Augustine of Hippo explained that a plainer style is better suited to teaching people, and that a grander one is probably more appropriate for motivating or moving them. And that's why my poems and academic papers sound different. The words I choose and the sentences I build are influenced by the context I'm writing in and for. Good poetic style and good academic style aren't the same thing. So you'll want to develop a range of stylistic skills and the judgment to use them in appropriate ways. And to be fair, that might sound like a tall order, but I say it mostly to show where I hope our talks about style can lead us, and to let you know that this is where I want to take this series on style in the future. It's not to say that you should have this all under control now. Don't be like the student who shows up in a class and then apologizes for not knowing everything about the subject. If you knew it already, the class would be a waste of time. So, long story short, developing your artistic style will involve improving your skill with the language, which is to say learning about words and about grammar. And then, developing your personal style will come as a natural result of how those linguistic skills are filtered through your own preferences and capabilities. Of course, I can't tell you exactly what will work for you, but I can tell you what's possible. We've already done a little of that in other videos, but I'd like to start doing more of it. In the meantime, I'll just pitch the grammar series from a few years ago. If you want a reasonable primer on how the language is put together, that would be a great place to start. Either way though, thanks for joining me today, and here's to a whole lot more stylistic fun to come.